Now, we are continuing our study on the parables of Jesus, and this is now our third parable, and it is very, very familiar parable, right? The parable of the Good Samaritan. The parable of the Good Samaritan. I would actually sometimes would say, how about the parable of the compassionate enemy? Because this is all what about? Now, whenever we say Good Samaritan, it's actually being used by a lot of people. Well, in fact, non-profit organizations use the Good Samaritan organization. They name their organizations like the Good Samaritan or the Samaritan Purse, kind of like that. And if I know you've heard this a lot on the news. When somebody got into an accident, somebody would try to help. We call that person us the Good Samaritan. And it became, the Good Samaritan label became a badge of honor to people who would go run and do and help people who are in dire need. Now, amazingly, this is the good thing about this, a lot of people who does not want to believe in Jesus, who is not reading the Bible, they use the Good Samaritan to refer to people who are helping people. Now, our state, a very, very liberal state. Do you know that our state, we have the Good Samaritan law? Right? The Good Samaritan law. Now, what is that? It simply means that it's just in case of emergency, you want to help somebody in times of emergency, you are protected. Like if in case somebody is going to have a heart attack or cardiac arrest on the road, and you are there to help, and you're pumping, and then as you are trying to revive the person, you broke, which is, it normally happens, you broke 2 or 3 or 4 of the ribs in the rib cage, right? And then, if that person gets revived and said, "You broke my ribs, I'm going to sue you." Even if you help this person, he can sue you. But because of the Good Samaritan law in the state of Washington, they cannot sue you. Amazing. Everybody's using the Good Samaritan. Now, Luke chapter 10, it's on your notes. Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. One day, an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus. Now, this is not a lawyer like a prosecutor kind of lawyer or defense lawyer. A religious lawyer is not the kind of lawyer who would represent you to court. He is a person who knows the law of Moses, the Torah, and he knows it so well, he memorized it, and he will interpret it to people. For those who are asking, what does it mean? This guy will be the one to interpret it. This lawyer asked a question to what? To test Jesus. To test Jesus' knowledge about the Torah, about the law of Moses. And we know that he knows the answer already, but still he wanted to ask Jesus. And I know there are some people in our lives, they would ask questions even if they already know the answer. I myself, I've been asked questions several times by different people that I know this person already knows the answer, but he just wants to know what's my position on the question, on the issue. And even in our families, there are some questions that are being asked that that member of the family already knows the answer. Like questions like, where do you think you are supposed to put the dishes after you eat? Hello, you know already the answer, right? Or, do you think it's about time to throw the trash outside because it's already full? These are questions that the questionnaire, the person who's asking the question already knows the answer. Some tough questions like this. Honey, I feel like I gained weight. What do you think? Whatever answer you give, you're in trouble, right? The best answer is, feelings cannot be trusted. Feelings are deceptive. Even the weighing scale is not telling the truth. They are liars. Or questions like, honey, when I die, will you marry again? It's like, can we not talk about death right now? So this religious lawyer, asked Jesus to test him a question that he already knows the answer. So Jesus, instead of answering his question with something, he answered his question with a question. Jesus said, because the question is like this, Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life? And so Jesus replied, well, you are a religious lawyer. You know the Old Testament. You know the Torah. You know the law of Moses. What do you think? See, instead of answering him directly, Jesus asked him, well, what do you think? What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it? And the man answered, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all my, okay. There you go. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind. He is quoting Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. And then, love your neighbor as yourself. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. And Jesus said, you are right. See, you know the answer. And Jesus said, now do this, and you will live. Now, we don't know the age, how old the religious lawyer was. But I believe he felt embarrassed. I believe that this lawyer was way lot older than Jesus. Jesus during that time was between 30 to 33 years old, a young rabbi. And he wanted to embarrass Jesus. Now with Jesus' answer, he himself was embarrassed. Now, to keep himself from further embarrassing himself, he asked, Rabbi, who is my neighbor? Now, who is my neighbor? Who is your neighbor? Now, to the Jewish people, it has always been a debate of who is their neighbor. Is my neighbor the person who is living right next to my house? Or is my neighbor everyone who lives in our community? Or is my neighbor, or how about this, those Jewish people who live in Jerusalem, would they consider those Jewish people who live in Galilee as their neighbor? How about the Jewish people who lives in Corinth, in Rome, in Libya, in Cyprus, in different parts of the world? Are they our neighbors? It's a question for them because they know that if someone would say that that person is your neighbor, you are obligated to help your neighbor in times of need. And that's why they want to know who is their neighbor. And they want small community of neighbors only because they don't want to help everybody. So it's this neighbor question is only among the Jewish people. The Gentiles and the Samaritans are not part of the question. Because definitely, even if the person or the family living next to them is a Gentile, they're not their neighbors. Worse, if the family who lives right next to them or on the other side of the room is a Samaritan, absolutely they cannot be considered as neighbors, as their neighbors, because they hate the Samaritans. Now, instead of directly answering his question, Jesus replied with a story. And Jesus said, there was a Jewish man. He was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho. And he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. Now, let me give you a picture of the trek. If you can see that clearly, I hope you could. This is the kind of road. This is one of the old roads from Jerusalem to Jericho. Jerusalem to Jericho, it's basically a desert, mountainous area with rugged roads and with cliffs. And it's not an easy road. Not only that it was a dangerous trek to walk, but also it's dangerous because there are lots of wild animals. And it's more dangerous because there are lots of bandits, bad people, bad elements waiting for lone travelers. And it seems like what happened was we had a lone traveler. That's why they always travel in groups. Because the more number you have who travels, the better protected you are. And so this man, Jesus said, he was traveling from Jerusalem, meaning that he went to Jerusalem to worship, to offer sacrifices in the temple. He was traveling from Jerusalem, going down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits, stripped of everything. Now, by chance, a priest came along. But when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. A priest who came from Jerusalem, where this man came from, what did he do in Jerusalem? He offered the sacrifices of the people to God. That's what he did. He offered the sacrifices, the goats, the lamb sacrifice, the sin sacrifice, the burnt offering of the people to God. And for him to offer sacrifices to the Lord, he must be ceremonially clean. So on his way back from offering and worshiping the Lord, on his way back, he passed by this fellow Jewish guy, beaten up, half dead, naked. He said, I don't want to get involved with this. So he passed on the other side of the road. Why? Because he's ceremonially clean, and if he is going to touch the man even just to touch the blood of a man, he will become ceremonially unclean. He will be spiritually defiled. Much more if this guy is going to die. If this person is going to die, because Jewish people are not allowed to touch dead bodies, especially the priest, not only that he will be ceremonially unclean, but he needs to go back to Jerusalem, and then he needs to offer a red heifer, a red female cow, 100% red, to cleanse himself, to wash himself. That's a lot of hassle, right? So let me ask you this. What would you do when you see someone stuck on the freeway? Would you say, I don't want to deal with that? You know, I'm busy. I have an appointment. And plus, this guy should have a AAA to help this guy, right? Somebody who runs out of gas on the freeway, I don't know. Let somebody else help this person. And then Jesus continued in verse 32, a temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. A temple assistant is a Levite from the tribe of Levi. He's a Levite. Now all priests comes from the tribe of Levi, but not all Levites are priests. There are some who are just temple assistants. And so this one is just like we'll say, the first one was, we put it in our context, let's say the first one was a pastor. Okay? Let's give him a name. Maybe his name is Dudes. He saw this guy lying half naked, almost dying. Not half naked, is naked, half dead. And then Dude just passed by him. Don't want to touch him because Dude has a Bible study to do. Then here comes an elder of the church. Saw this guy and said, I have to go to my family. I'm busy. I don't want to deal with him. I don't want to be defiled. All right? So he came from the tribe of Levi. Their role in the temple is to help the priest. So the question to us is, what would you do when you see a homeless person shivering in cold? Would you give him your coat? A few days ago, me and my son were we are at Safeway to buy some stuff, and there was this homeless guy who approached us and said, and he's got with him some food, and he was so honest. He said, I am homeless. Can you pay for this? I said, yes, absolutely. Let's go. I'll pay for it. Go grab yourself some bread as well. And he did. And the cashier, of course, was like looking at us and said, are you sure you're going to pay for this? Yeah, it's better that he asked me to pay for it. It's better that way because I don't want him grabbing some food without paying and stealing the food just because he's hungry. I mean, this guy wasn't asking for money. He was asking for food. He was not trying to steal. He was just asking if I could pay for his food for that day. There are times also that we don't want to help people because it's just an inconvenience for us. Or there are times we don't want to help others because somebody's going to do it for us. Then here comes the unlikely hero of the story that was being told by a Jewish man. Jesus was a Jewish rabbi. And his audience were all Jewish people. Verse 33, then a despised, circle that one, a despised Samaritan came along. A despised Samaritan came along. I don't know how the religious lawyer and all the Jewish audiences of Jesus reacted to this, right? It was bad enough that the priest did not help. It was bad enough that the Levi did not help. It's an insult if the hero of the story that was being told by a Jewish rabbi to Jewish audience is a Samaritan. The reason why the Jews hated the Samaritan was because the Samaritans were half-breeds. It goes back in 720 BC when the Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. And then they relocated the remnants of the northern kingdom of Israel, relocated to different countries, and then they brought some people from different countries to live in Israel, in the northern part of Israel, where they had mixed marriages. The Jewish people said, you guys are not Hebrew enough. You are not the children of Abraham. You don't belong to us. You guys are dirty. Not only that, but they also worship God in Gerizim. Now, because of the Jewish attitude towards them, the Samaritans also learned to despise the Jewish people. It is not uncommon for the Jews to spit on the Samaritans when they see them on the road, on the streets, in the marketplace, or to be grossed out with them. In fact, they don't travel. The Jewish people, they don't travel through a Samaritan city. Remember the story of the Samaritan woman? Jesus, a Jewish rabbi, passed through Samaria, and his disciples said, why are we going to pass through here? This is the city of gross, dirty, half-breed people. We're not supposed to go here. Now, in this parable, Jesus portrayed the Samaritan as the good neighbor. as the Good Samaritan, which is, listen to this, which is an oxymoron to his Jewish audience, because to them, the only Good Samaritan is a dead Samaritan. When the Samaritan saw the man, he did not spit on him. He did not kick him. He did not put Tabasco on his wounds. He did not smash his head with a big rock and finish him off. But he felt what? Compassion for him. He felt compassion to the very person who despised, who hated the Samaritans, himself and his family. So going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The Samaritan did not look at this man as an enemy and felt good that he is hurting and dying. He did not say, "Good riddance." Instead, he felt compassion to the very person who despises him. He felt compassion to his arch enemy. And this compassion led him to action. See, it is different when you see somebody who's in need and you help that person. Because at least you are helping, and this guy did not do something bad to you, and this guy did not despise you. But it is different when you help somebody who hates you, who say evil things about you, who doesn't like you, not even a single bit. Now look at this. The Samaritan used his own olive oil and expensive wine to disinfect his enemy's wound. Because he don't carry bandages with him, he tore his own robes and wrapped him with it. He wasted an olive oil, a precious olive oil. He wasted an expensive wine for the person who doesn't like him. His expensive robe, he tore it, he cut it, so that he can bind the wound of the man. Then the Samaritan decided to walk so that he can put the Jew on his own donkey until he found an inn where they can stay. Not only that, but the Samaritan stayed with the Jew for the night to make sure that he is well taken care of, to make sure that he's not going to die. He stayed with them. He must be a busy man. But he said, I can reschedule my appointment. But this man, I cannot leave this man alone. Not only that I am going to rent a room for him to stay, but I want to make sure his wounds is not going to be infected and that he is not going to go into shock and die. Now, the Samaritan was done doing good deeds to his enemy. Verse 35. The next day, he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I am here." Take care of this man. Now, here's the caveat here. The Samaritan man most likely knows the innkeeper. The innkeeper most likely knows the Samaritan man because he must be a constant traveler, a wealthy traveler probably, that they know each other. Now, why do you think the innkeeper let a Samaritan man to rent a room for him in that inn? Who do you think is the owner of the inn? A Jewish guy or a Samaritan? A Samaritan. Because a Jewish guy would not rent a room to a Samaritan. Because they're gross. They're filthy. Only a Samaritan innkeeper would rent a room to a Samaritan. And he told this another Samaritan guy, here's the money. Take care of this Jewish guy. I know they hate us. I know they despise us. But this is not the time to get revenge. This is the time to help. So he gave money to the innkeeper. He said, take care of him. Make sure you change the bandage. Make sure that he won't get infected with anything. Do you know how far the money could go? The 2 silver, 2 silver coins? It can go to a month or more. And then he made a promise. If this man would incur more bills, don't worry, I'll pay for him. Why did he pay for the bill? Why? Here's the thing. If this guy, after he got healed, if he won't be able to pay his bill, he will become the Samaritan's slave. If you cannot pay your bill, you will become the slave of the lender. And so the Samaritan said, you went through a lot already. I want you to go home to your family when you feel better. I want you to go home to your family, to your wife, to your kids as a free man. I don't want you to be a slave of a Samaritan man. He went over and above his duty as a human. Again, it is easy to do it to a stranger. It is easy to do it to your fellow Americans or to their fellow Jewish guys or fellow Samaritans. But to do it to somebody who hates you, who hates your tribe, who despises your tribe, who despises your children, who said nasty things about your wife. It's like, wow. And so verse 36, Jesus asked, now, which of these 3 would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by bandits? I know you Jewish people, you don't consider, and you will never consider a Samaritan and a Gentile to become your neighbor, as your neighbor. But look, who's the neighbor here? The priest who offered sacrifices to the Lord? The Levite who helped the priest? Or this guy who you despise? The man replied, take note of this. His reply was, it was the Samaritan man. Is that what the reply? No. He said, well, the one who showed him mercy. He could not even utter the word Samaritan. So embarrassing, isn't it? He just said, well, the one who showed him mercy. He could have said, oh, of course, the Samaritan man, because he was the one who showed him mercy. Nope. By nature, humans are compassionate. Americans are known as very, very compassionate people. That is why every time we hear countries hit with calamities, earthquakes, tsunamis, famine, we are so quick to send help, to send aid, right? We send doctors, we send food, we send machineries, and we even send money to help them. And here's what the study shows. And here's the truth. The countries getting the most American assistance also tended to be some of the most antagonistic towards the U.S. See that? Politics aside, as we celebrate Memorial Day next weekend, I can proudly say that the United States of America is a good Samaritan. It's a good Samaritan nation. In fact, we are the best in this area of helping other nations, even those nations who despise us, who hates us. You should be proud too. Amen? I mean, I know you. Some of you say, America. No. This is one of the areas where we can be proud that we are Americans. We help nations and countries who despise us. We don't care. We send money to them. They hate us, but still we are willing to help them. Now, how should we apply this message in our life? I know, I understand. Again, it is easier to help the person we like and even the strangers who are in need than a person who hates us. Person we do not like. Especially the person who says something nasty behind our back. It is easier to loan money to the person who forgot to pay his previous loan than to loan the person who stabbed us on the back and destroyed our reputation. It is better to eat on the same table with a homeless and pay his tab than to eat for free on the same table with a person who broke our trust. That's the truth. But how can we show compassion to the person we despise? Or I would say, how can we show compassion to the person who despises us? I'm not going to say a lot of things about this because I want you to think and just do it yourself, but I'll give you some, at least 3. If that person who despises you lost a loved one, send him a sympathy card. Donate to his GoFundMe account. But don't, on that sympathy card, you can say, I'm praying for you. But don't add, karma is a. Stop there. I am praying for you, that God may comfort you. If that person gets sick, send him a get well soon card. I pray that you feel better soon. Don't write, I hope you die soon. If you see that person on the side of the road with a flat tire, stop and offer help. When that Jewish guy who was helped by the Samaritan, when he gets home and when he was talking to his wife, to his kids, to his loved ones, to his friends, to the community in the synagogue, I wonder what he said about the Samaritan who helped him. Because what I believe, what the Samaritan did to him changed his perspective of who his neighbor is. About the Samaritan. If you help and offer help to the person who despises you, your family, it would change big time the way they perceive things about you and about your family. The bottom line is this: be compassionate to those who are in need without prejudice. Even if that person is your despised enemy. Even if you don't like this person, because this person don't like you first. Basically, God was just saying, bless this person. But what if this person hates me? Still bless this person. Do you know who is the best model of a good Samaritan? The best model as a good Samaritan is a Jewish man. His name is Jesus. Jesus is a Jew, but he died for the sinners, the people who don't like him, the people who despised him. He died for the people who crucified him. The Jew is the best example of a good Samaritan. Isn't that amazing? Let us pray.